Archangel Michael says, I am urging you with a voice full of urgency and tenderness to open your heart to these words without delay, because there is a stirring in the unseen places tonight that seeks to touch the very foundation of your home, and if you listen with faith and humility, you will understand that God's presence is moving closer than you have felt in many moments before. Type 888 to open doors of abundance. There are times when the human heart feels as though the silence of the night is filled only with shadows and uncertainty, yet in truth, those very hours are the ones where heaven bends down to meet earth, whispering divine comfort and reminding you that God has not forgotten the cries you lifted in secret nor the tears that were unseen by others. For the Lord treasures every sorrow and turns each into a seed of grace that will soon blossom into healing and peace. Tonight carries a sacred weight, not because of fear, but because God desires to draw your spirit into a deeper place of surrender where every wound, every unanswered prayer, and every hidden burden is gently gathered by the hands of Christ, who suffered and overcame, so that you might never walk through the night alone or without the assurance that His love is the anchor keeping you steady even when storms threaten to overwhelm. Subscribe to this channel if you want to walk with God every day. If your heart feels restless, it is because the Spirit is stirring within you, gently pulling away the heavy veils of despair that have tried to silence your faith, and if you lean into the stillness, you will sense the Lord's embrace wrapping around your soul like a soft cloak, reassuring you that the shocking thing is not destruction, but rather the sudden outpouring of God's mercy that enters unexpectedly, sweeping away fear and replacing it with a profound certainty that you are guarded and held by His eternal strength. Do not imagine that the urgency of this message is meant to frighten you, because in the language of heaven, urgency means immediacy of love, a swift response from the Lord who has waited for the perfect hour to step into your life with a revelation so tender and so transformative that you will never see your home the same way again, for His light sanctifies every room, His peace flows through every corner, and His angels stand watch at your doors. What if everything you've been chasing, wealth, freedom, success, could be drawn to you automatically, simply by unlocking a secret brain wave hidden inside you? Once classified by intelligence agencies, this discovery is now available to the public, and it's changing lives instantly. Picture yourself debt-free, stress-free, and thriving. Click the link in video description and comments below to awaken this money magnet frequency and watch abundance flow into your life today. It may feel as though trials have built walls around your heart, making it difficult to see beyond the struggles that press against you. But the truth is that Christ Himself is standing at those walls with His hand stretched wide, and with each touch of His presence, those barriers begin to crumble until what once seemed like unshakable darkness is flooded with the golden warmth of His unfailing love, a love so deep that it heals wounds you had forgotten were there. Type 1212 if you believe God is guiding you. The shocking moment that awaits is not meant to shatter you, but to awaken you, to open your spirit to the reality that God's timing is not delayed, and that when the night feels longest, that is when the dawn prepares to break with a beauty that can only be birthed through patience, faith, and surrender. So tonight you are invited to let go of the fear of what might come and instead hold on to the promise that Christ is already within your home, already touching the atmosphere with healing, already calling your heart into trust. Every prayer you thought disappeared into silence has been gathered, Every sigh you released has been written in the book of remembrance, and every step you made in pain has been counted with care, and now comes the hour where the Lord transforms each fragment into a testimony of hope, where the angels themselves rejoice at the sight of a child of God choosing to remain faithful even when the weight of life pressed heavily against them. And as you surrender in this moment, you will taste the sweetness of heaven's assurance that your home is not a place of fear, but a dwelling place of God's glory. So let tonight not be remembered for shadows or fear, but as the sacred night when you chose to believe that Christ has filled your life with hope, when you decided that no matter what tries to shake you, your faith in the Lord will remain unbroken, and when you trusted that the shocking thing entering your house is not despair, but a sudden rush of peace, a miracle clothed in divine timing, and a reminder that God's love is always closer than your breath, always stronger than your pain, and always more faithful than any doubt that tries to rise. Archangel Michael says, as the night deepens and the world around you falls into a quiet stillness, I am calling you to understand that what is unfolding in your life right now is not meant to harm you but to awaken your heart to the reality that the Lord has placed His covering over your home. His angels have been stationed at the threshold of your door, and His Spirit is gently moving through the air you breathe, filling it with unseen strength and peace that will not fade. The urgent message I carry is born not out of fear but out of an overflowing love that does not want you to miss the tender moment God has designed for you, because this moment carries the power to reshape the atmosphere of your house, to replace the heavy shadows of worry with a new dawn of assurance, and to make your heart realize that heaven's presence is not distant but alive, breathing and near, ready to touch every weary corner of your soul. Type 333 to welcome blessings. There is a stirring happening within your spirit, almost like the soft sound of wind moving through trees on a still night, a sign that the Holy Spirit is at work in ways you cannot always see, yet His movements are unmistakable, for He lifts burdens that were pressing too hard, He breaks chains that seemed unbreakable, and He releases a sweetness of peace that wraps itself around you until even your fears bow before the majesty of Christ's presence. The shocking moment that heaven speaks of is not meant to break your hope but to reveal that God has always been one step ahead of the darkness that tried to enter, for long before you knew of tonight, He had already sent His messengers to guard you, He had already prepared blessings to pour out over your home, and He had already determined that what the enemy planned for harm would become a testimony of His unshakable faithfulness and His redeeming love. Do not think for a single breath that you are unworthy of this touch of grace, because the cross of Christ has already declared your worth, His wounds have already spoken of your value, and His resurrection has already secured your freedom, and it is by that eternal sacrifice that your life tonight stands under the canopy of divine mercy, where no darkness can prevail, where no fear can conquer, and where no sorrow can silence the voice of God's eternal promises. The Lord has seen how tired you have become from carrying battles within your heart that no one else understood, and He has watched as you faced nights where tears became your language and silence became your only companion, yet those nights were never wasted, for every tear became a seed watered by His compassion, and now you stand in the hour where those seeds begin to break forth into a garden of hope, where faith rises from ashes, and where love covers all that once felt broken. The urgency I speak of is a call for you to open the door of your heart fully, not halfway, not with hesitation, but completely, because God is not asking to visit for a moment, He is asking to dwell, to live within you, to let His light rest over your family, your home, your thoughts, and your future, and when you allow Him to be the center, then the fear of shocking moments turns into the joy of divine encounters, where you recognize that everything happening is for your good and for your growth in His love. There is nothing accidental about this night, for in heaven's design, the moments you call interruptions are often the very moments God calls invitations, and tonight is an invitation into deeper trust, into stronger faith, into greater peace, and into a love that no circumstance can take away, and as you listen until the end, you will sense that your soul is being renewed with a calmness that does not belong to this world but flows directly from the heart of God who calls you His own. Type 777 if you walk by faith. So let your spirit rest in this truth, that the urgent message of heaven is not a threat of despair but a promise of transformation, not a warning of fear but a declaration of love, and not a message of loss but a proclamation that your home is already filled with the presence of the Lord, your nights are already covered by His angels, and your future is already written in the ink of His faithfulness, which no force on earth can erase or undo. What if the fastest path to wealth was already inside your mind, waiting to be activated by a powerful sound wave? Scientists call it the money-attracting frequency, and once awakened, it begins drawing opportunities, success, and financial freedom like never before. Imagine the relief of no more bills and the joy of living your dreams. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on this ancient brain wave today. Archangel Michael says, I am asking you once more to lean closer to these words, for they are not spoken lightly, but carry the weight of heaven's love that longs to reach into the very depths of your soul and remind you that no matter how overwhelming the storms around you may seem, the Lord is moving in power tonight, and the miracle you need is already finding its way into your life. There are nights that feel endless, nights where the silence of your house seems to echo with the heaviness of uncertainty, yet it is in those very hours that God's presence becomes the strongest, for when all else is quiet, His voice whispers gently into your heart, assuring you that He is not absent but more present than you realize, and that what feels like a season of shadows is in truth the beginning of a new dawn of His glory rising over you. The shocking thing that heaven speaks of is not something designed to bring despair, but rather a divine interruption meant to awaken you, to lift you from the weariness of your struggles, and to show you that even in the places where you thought everything was falling apart, God was already weaving together something beautiful, something lasting, something born from His perfect plan that cannot be shaken by the enemy or destroyed by fear. I want you to understand that the urgency of this moment is born from God's desire to see your faith strengthened, because faith is the anchor that holds you steady when storms try to pull you away, and tonight, as you cling to Christ, you will find that His love is not fragile but unbreakable, not momentary but eternal, and that nothing you have endured has been in vain. For every pain has prepared you to see the depth of His goodness with greater clarity. There are angels walking through the rooms of your home even now, their presence unseen yet undeniable, for they carry peace into places where tension has lingered, they carry healing into the spaces where pain has dwelt too long, and they carry the fragrance of heaven that shifts the atmosphere until even your heart feels lighter, more free, and more ready to believe again in the promises of God that have never been withdrawn from you. You may think your prayers have been too small or your faith too weak, but I tell you, Even the smallest cry that rose from your lips has been heard, and the Lord has treasured every word you have spoken in sincerity, and tonight, as this divine message unfolds, those prayers are being answered in ways greater than you imagined, for what you thought was delayed was only being prepared for a perfect moment such as this, where heaven touches earth in your very home. Do not let fear define what happens tonight, because fear is powerless in the presence of perfect love, and the love of Christ is pouring out like living water, washing away the doubts that have whispered against your spirit, silencing the lies that have told you that you are forgotten, and filling you instead with the assurance that you are chosen, you are seen, and you are held by hands that will never let you go, no matter what comes. The urgent call is for you to rest and surrender, to release the tight grip you have held over your battles, and to allow God to take His rightful place at the center of your life, because when He reigns at the center, everything that once felt uncertain begins to align under His authority, and you begin to see that what seemed like chaos was only the setting for a testimony that will bring glory to His name and strength to your soul. Type yes to affirm. So tonight, as you listen fully, let your heart be open to the truth that God's plans are not to harm you but to lift you, not to shock you with despair but to surprise you with grace, not to leave you in fear but to cover you in everlasting love, and as you hold on to these words, you will discover that your house is not filled with danger but with divine presence, and that your life is already surrounded by the shield of the Almighty, who never fails. Archangel Michael says, I am reaching to you again with a message wrapped in heaven's urgency, because the hours of the night are not ordinary, and what unfolds carries a sacred weight, as though the unseen world leans closer to your home, reminding you that the Lord is not only watching from above but is walking within your walls, filling the silence with His divine breath, and transforming the very atmosphere into a sanctuary of His peace. The words I bring are not meant to burden you, but to release you from the grip of fear that has tried to settle into your thoughts, for the truth is that God has already gone before you, preparing every detail, setting every boundary, and commanding His angels to encircle your dwelling, so that what was meant to frighten you turns instead into a testimony of His covering, His mercy, and His unfailing love that never abandons or forgets. When heaven speaks of something shocking, it is not to bring terror into your heart, but to awaken you to the reality that God's power is always greater than the forces that rise against you, and that the sudden change you will sense is not the breaking of your life but the breaking of chains that have bound your soul, not the collapse of your hope but the collapse of despair, not the destruction of your peace but the destruction of every weapon the enemy tried to bring against you. There is a tenderness in God's presence tonight that cannot be overlooked, a tenderness that feels like the warmth of a fire on a cold night, a love that wraps itself around you until every shadow begins to fade, and every wound begins to heal, for Christ does not come with condemnation but with compassion, and it is His compassion that is flowing into your heart, whispering that you are safe, that you are loved, and that you will never be forsaken. You may feel as though your prayers have drifted without answer, yet this is the moment where God steps in to show you that none of your cries have been wasted, none of your tears have been overlooked, and none of your battles have gone unseen, for He has been near all along, weaving together answers in ways you could not yet perceive, and now, as the night carries this sacred message, He is unveiling the truth that your breakthrough has already begun, and your victory is nearer than you thought. The angels surrounding your home tonight are not silent witnesses but mighty protectors, carrying swords of light that pierce through the darkness, guarding every threshold and watching over every loved one, and even though your eyes may not see them, your spirit can feel the weight of their presence, a holy assurance that the kingdom of heaven has filled your house and no force of darkness can cross the boundaries set by the Lord's command. Do not let your heart tremble at the thought of what is coming, because what comes is not ruin but renewal, not loss but life, not emptiness but a filling so complete that your spirit will overflow with peace, for the Lord is not a God of fear but of hope, not a God of absence but of nearness, and this nearness is what you will sense tonight as His presence settles more deeply into every part of your being. What if you discovered a tiny, walnut-sized brain region holds the secret to endless wealth and success? Recently uncovered by groundbreaking research and once buried in classified files, this frequency is now available to anyone ready to listen. Imagine replacing worry and struggle with a life of financial ease and freedom. Interested? Click the link in video description and comments below to unleash this hidden brain wave and start attracting wealth right now. The urgency is not to alarm you but to draw you into alignment with what God is doing right now, because His timing is perfect, His ways are higher, and His plan is unfolding with precision, and all He asks of you is to open your heart wide enough to receive it, to trust Him fully, and to let go of the doubts that have tried to convince you that He has delayed, when in truth He has been preparing you for this very hour of encounter. So let this night be remembered not as a night of fear but as the night of holy visitation, the night where God's love became more tangible, His peace became more real, and His mercy became more overwhelming than any trouble you had faced, and let your spirit rest in the certainty that your house is not marked by fear but by favor, not covered in despair but in divine protection, and not filled with silence but filled with the songs of heaven declaring victory over your life. Type 555 to receive miracles. Archangel Michael says, I am calling your heart once more with words carried by the breath of heaven, because tonight holds a divine weight that you must not dismiss, for the Lord has chosen this moment to draw near to your soul in a way that is unforgettable, and the very air around you is being filled with His presence, wrapping your spirit in a shield of light that no darkness can break through. The urgency of this message is not the urgency of fear, but the urgency of love, a love so fierce and so endless that God Himself refuses to let you walk another step without realizing how deeply He is committed to your life, how tenderly He has been guiding you even when you felt abandoned, and how faithfully He has been watching over your home, ensuring that tonight will be remembered not as a night of trembling but as a night of transformation. Something stirring is happening within your walls, not the kind of stirring that brings despair, but the kind that shifts everything into alignment with the will of God, the kind that moves invisible barriers out of your way, the kind that pushes aside the weight of sorrow that has tried to linger, and the kind that makes space for new joy, new healing, and new strength that comes only from the heart of Christ, who has promised never to leave you nor forsake you. I want you to know that the shocking moment heaven speaks of is not to wound you but to wake you, not to frighten you but to free you, for the chains that have been hidden in your heart, the heaviness that has settled into your thoughts, and the shadows that have whispered lies against your faith are all being broken apart, scattered and destroyed by the light of God's truth, and in their place, peace will rise like a river, flowing without end through every corner of your home. This very hour is sacred because the Lord's Spirit is moving in silence, moving in ways unseen by your natural eyes, yet your heart can feel the shift, your soul can sense the closeness, and your spirit knows that something holy is taking place, something that will mark your life forever, for when heaven decides to visit, no force on earth can resist, and no darkness can stand against the brilliance of God's unfailing love. Your prayers, though they felt small and weak to you, have shaken the doors of heaven, and your cries, though whispered in private moments, have reached the throne of God, and He has answered, not with delay but with perfect timing, for He has waited for the night where you would be most ready, where your spirit would be most open, and where your faith would cling most desperately, so that the miracle He sends would be received fully, and tonight is that night. The angels who walk through your house are not simply protectors but messengers, carrying the fragrance of God's glory and leaving behind trails of light in every room, and though unseen, they are shifting the very atmosphere so that where there was tension, peace is born, where there was sorrow, joy begins to bloom, and where there was hopelessness, faith begins to rise. For the Lord has sent them as a visible sign of His invisible strength working on your behalf. Type 1717 to affirm your life is in God's hands. Type 1818 to claim miracles and breakthroughs. Do not allow fear to twist this urgent message into something heavy, because fear is not of God, and it has no voice in the presence of perfect love, and perfect love is exactly what Christ is pouring into your soul at this moment, filling you with courage, anchoring you in hope, and reminding you that no matter how dark the world around you may appear, His light is stronger, His promises are sure, and His love is eternal, never changing, never fading, never withdrawn. So let your heart be steady in the truth that tonight is not the night of despair but the night of deliverance, not the night of ruin but the night of renewal, and not the night of fear but the night where God's voice became louder than your doubts, where His presence became stronger than your pain, and where His mercy became the defining story of your home, a story that will echo for years to come, reminding you that God never failed you. And He never will. Archangel Michael says, I come again with a voice filled with urgency and tenderness, because the night still carries the weight of something holy, and heaven is leaning closer to your home with a message that must not be ignored, for the Lord Himself has chosen this very moment to remind you that His hand is upon you, His Spirit is within you, and His angels are surrounding you with a shield of light that no darkness has the power to cross. The urgency I speak of is not meant to stir fear in your heart, but to open your spirit to the truth that God is moving now, not tomorrow, not in some distant season, but in this very hour, and the stirring you feel inside is the gentle yet undeniable sign that He is touching your life in ways that will forever shift your path toward peace, restoration, and unshakable hope. Something shocking may appear to rise in the natural, but do not mistake its meaning, because what heaven calls shocking is not disaster but divine intervention, not ruin but renewal, not loss but liberation, for God has stepped into the story of your home and declared with authority that the chains of fear will break, the shadows of despair will scatter, and the heavy silence that tried to suffocate your faith will be filled instead with the sound of His love whispering peace into your soul. Every prayer you have whispered, every sigh that has escaped your lips in the quiet moments when you felt no one was listening, has reached the Lord, and tonight is the night where He makes His answer known, not always in ways the world would expect, but in ways that will leave you certain that His timing is perfect, His mercy is unending, and His love is written over every chapter of your life, even the ones that once seemed too painful to understand. The angels assigned to your household have not come empty-handed, for they bring with them the fragrance of heaven, and as they move through the rooms of your dwelling, they carry with them the peace of God that surpasses all human understanding, leaving behind a calmness that cannot be shaken, a stillness that cannot be stolen, and a covering that reassures you that the presence of the Lord is not only with you but deeply rooted within your home. The Lord is speaking through this message not to frighten you but to awaken you, because too often your heart has carried the weight of burdens in silence, believing that maybe no help would come, but He has chosen this very night to lift those burdens, to breathe new life into weary places, and to remind you that His strength has always been greater than your weakness, and His love has always been stronger than the pain that tried to silence your joy. Type Amen if you surrender fully to God's will. Do not be afraid of what feels unknown, because the unknown is where God often does His greatest work, and tonight He is rewriting the atmosphere of your life, turning confusion into clarity, sorrow into joy, and fear into courage. And if you allow your heart to remain open, you will begin to sense the shift, like a river of peace flowing where there was once dryness, and like a light breaking through where there was once only shadow. The shocking event you are told of is not the end but a beginning, not a breaking apart but a breaking open, where walls of doubt collapse so that new faith may rise, where old wounds are touched with healing, and where a deeper awareness of God's nearness fills your life with a sense of wonder so powerful that you will never again question if He hears you, because His presence will become undeniable in ways you cannot overlook. So let this message settle in your soul, reminding you that tonight is holy, tonight is sacred, and tonight is marked by the love of a Father who never lets go, the compassion of a Savior who gave everything for you, and the presence of a Spirit who will guide you through every valley and every trial, until all that remains is peace, assurance, and a heart overflowing with gratitude that God has made your home His dwelling place forever. Archangel Michael says, I am pressing upon your heart once again, because this night is unlike other nights, and the urgency of these words carries the fragrance of heaven itself, urging you not to drift away from the truth that God is speaking into your spirit right now, for the Lord has ordained this very hour to be one of awakening, renewal, and protection, and His light is stretching across every shadow that has tried to trouble your home. What if I told you financial freedom is not about working harder, but activating a dormant brain signal designed to draw abundance directly to you? Neuroscience proves this sound wave unlocks prosperity faster than any method known before. From unexpected cash to life-changing success, it's already helping thousands. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on the ancient money wave and create the life you've always dreamed of today. The message I bring is filled with divine compassion, for God's love is not a distant promise but a present reality, and tonight He is making His nearness known in ways you will not be able to deny, because His Spirit is already flowing through your heart like a gentle river, breaking down the walls that fear tried to build, washing away the residue of despair, and planting within you a new strength that will carry you through seasons yet to come. When you hear of something shocking, do not let your mind imagine destruction, because what heaven means by shocking is the sudden appearance of God's hand moving so swiftly and so powerfully that it leaves you in awe, for He is coming into your story with answers you never thought possible, with healing you thought delayed, and with breakthroughs that will remind you that no matter how long the night may have felt, the dawn of His goodness always arrives at the perfect time. I want you to understand that the heaviness you have been carrying was never meant to be yours alone, because the cross of Christ carried it all, and tonight the Lord is calling you to release it fully, to place every fear, every sorrow, and every uncertainty into His hands, and in exchange He offers you peace so deep, joy so lasting, and hope so steady that nothing in this world could ever take it away. For His gifts are eternal and sealed in His love. The angels standing watch at your home are not only protecting you but also declaring God's promises over your life, speaking blessings into the unseen, and creating an atmosphere where miracles can unfold without hindrance, for they are sent by the One who has already written victory over you, and their presence is a reminder that you are never alone, that heaven itself is invested in your journey, and that the Lord has surrounded you with favor that cannot be broken. Type 1515 to receive peace in your soul today. Every tear you have shed has been seen, every quiet prayer you whispered in moments of exhaustion has been heard, and every battle you thought you fought alone has been watched by the God who never abandoned you. And now the answers, the healing, and the restoration you have been longing for are being released, not as a distant hope but as a present reality, touching your life in ways that will leave you stronger, softer, and more anchored in His endless grace. Do not allow doubt to steal this moment, for doubt is a shadow that loses its strength when you stand in the light of truth. And the truth is that Christ has already secured your future, already spoken peace over your nights, and already declared joy over your days. And when you rest in this truth, fear begins to dissolve, courage begins to rise, and love becomes the foundation upon which you stand, no matter what storms may surround you. The shocking moment of tonight is the sudden unveiling of God's nearness, the overwhelming sense that He has filled every corner of your house, the quiet realization that His voice has been whispering to you all along, and the undeniable peace that falls over you like a gentle covering, assuring you that not only are you safe, but you are deeply loved, deeply valued, and deeply protected by the One who calls you His child. So let this night be a turning point, the night where you chose to believe that God's love is greater than every fear, the night where you recognized that shocking news from heaven is always rooted in grace, and the night where you allowed His presence to heal your heart, restore your faith, and mark your home forever as a place where light dwells, where peace rests, and where His promises are alive and unshakable through all generations. Archangel Michael says, "I am speaking again with the voice of heaven's tenderness and urgency, because the hour you are living in is not ordinary, and the stirring within your heart is not accidental, for the Lord has chosen this night to reach deeply into your life, to remind you that His love is stronger than the weight you carry, and His presence is closer than the very breath you draw into your lungs." The urgency of this moment is born out of God's compassion, because He sees the heaviness you have tried to hide, the battles you have fought in silence, and the questions that have pressed against your faith, and He is not standing far away, but drawing near, filling your home with the light of His Spirit, and sending His angels to guard every doorway, so that fear may no longer linger in the corners where peace was meant to dwell. When heaven speaks of something shocking, it is not a warning of despair but an invitation into wonder, for what is coming is not the ruin of your peace but the sudden breaking open of blessings that have been waiting for the right moment, blessings that will arrive so swiftly, so unexpectedly, that you will know without doubt that only the hand of God could have moved in such a powerful and undeniable way. Your heart may have grown weary from long seasons of waiting, but tonight is marked by divine timing, where what once felt delayed is being released, and what once seemed impossible is becoming reality, because the Lord has heard every prayer you thought lost, every sigh you thought unnoticed, and every cry you thought unanswered. And He has chosen this very hour to show you that His answers are never absent but always arriving in ways far greater than you imagined. Type 1414 if you believe in divine protection. The angels in your house tonight are not silent shadows but radiant messengers, carrying peace into the atmosphere and pushing back every force of darkness that tried to steal your rest. And though unseen by your eyes, their presence is felt in the sudden calm that comes over your soul, the quiet assurance that no harm can cross the threshold of your home, and the gentle warmth that settles into your spirit, reminding you that you are fully protected and completely loved. Christ is standing in the center of your story, not as a distant Savior but as a present King, reaching into the places where pain has lingered too long, touching the wounds that you tried to cover, and whispering life into the dreams that you thought were gone forever. And His voice tonight is clear, reminding you that nothing you have faced has been wasted, because every trial is being turned into testimony, every battle into blessing, and every sorrow into a deeper revelation of His grace. Do not let fear define your perception of what is unfolding, because fear is a shadow with no power in the light of God's truth, and His truth declares that you are safe, His truth proclaims that you are chosen, and His truth confirms that your home is already marked by His favor, so that even when uncertainty tries to rise against you, your heart will remain steady, anchored in the unshakable reality of His eternal love. The shocking thing about this night is the suddenness of His nearness, the overwhelming peace that falls without warning, and the powerful awareness that you are not alone, for the Lord Himself is dwelling with you, His Spirit is resting upon you, and His mercy is rewriting the story of your house, so that what once felt empty is now overflowing, and what once felt broken is now being restored with beauty, hope, and strength that will last. So let this message sink into your soul like a song that cannot be silenced, a song that declares the goodness of God, the faithfulness of Christ, and the protection of His angels, and let tonight be remembered as the night of divine visitation, the night when heaven touched your home, the night when fear was silenced forever, and the night when you discovered that shocking news from God always means mercy, always means love, and always means life renewed in His presence. Archangel Michael says, "I come to you again with words that carry both the weight of urgency and the gentleness of God's love, because this night is not ordinary, and the stirring in your soul is not random, for heaven is pressing close, wrapping your home in divine protection, and reminding you that the Lord has never once turned His gaze away from you, not in moments of strength, and not even in the moments when you felt you were too weak to keep going." The urgency of this hour is born not from fear, but from the overflowing love of God, who desires that you do not miss the beauty of what He is doing in your life right now, because something sacred is unfolding, something you cannot always see with your eyes, yet your heart can sense it, as peace slowly begins to push away the noise of anxiety, as light begins to stretch across the shadows of despair, and as faith begins to take root where hopelessness once tried to grow. When I tell you of something shocking, I do not speak of ruin, but of revelation, not of destruction, but of restoration, because what is about to be unveiled in your house is not darkness but light, not emptiness but fullness, not despair but a sudden wave of God's mercy that will leave you in awe of His timing, His care, and His ability to turn every sorrow into a testimony of His endless faithfulness. Your soul may carry the weight of unanswered prayers, yet tonight is the moment where you begin to see that none of them have been lost, because every word you ever spoke to the Lord has been gathered in His hands, every tear has been recorded in His book, and every moment of silence has been filled with His unseen presence, patiently preparing the perfect time to bring answers. And now, as heaven leans near, that time has come to pass. What if the missing piece to financial success wasn't luck, but a hidden frequency inside your brain waiting to be switched on? Once activated, this ancient signal unleashes waves of prosperity, opening doors to opportunities you never thought possible. From sudden windfalls to long-awaited breakthroughs, it's transforming lives daily. Want to see how? Click the link in the video description and comments below to tap into the money magnet brain wave and begin your journey today. The angels in your dwelling are moving with purpose, not simply guarding but shifting the atmosphere, carrying the presence of the Lord into every room, and leaving behind a covering so tangible that even your heart feels lighter, for their mission tonight is to stand between you and every force of fear, declaring over your home that it is sealed by the blood of Christ, filled with the light of His Spirit, and secured by the promise that no darkness will prevail against you. Christ Himself is here with you, not in a distant way, but in a closeness that your spirit can feel, touching the places of your heart that were too fragile for others to see, lifting the burdens that weighed too heavily on your shoulders, and whispering life into the dreams and hopes that you thought had died. And He does this because His love is not shallow or fleeting, but endless, eternal, and deeply personal, tailored to every detail of your life. Do not let fear twist the meaning of urgency, for urgency in the language of God is always an invitation into trust, always a call to surrender, and always a reminder that what He is about to do is not meant to harm you but to bless you, not meant to strip you of joy but to fill you with a peace so unshakable that even storms cannot remove it. Because His peace is not of this world but flows directly from His throne into your spirit. Type 1313 to affirm strength through the Lord. The shocking truth of tonight is not that darkness rises, but that light has already overcome it, not that despair is near, but that joy is closer, not that you are forgotten, but that you are remembered by name in the heart of God. And this realization will awaken something in you so profound that your faith will no longer tremble, because you will know with certainty that you are covered, protected, and embraced by the Lord who never fails. So let your heart rest in the promise that tonight is a holy turning point, a night where your house becomes more than walls and rooms, but a dwelling place of God's Spirit, a sanctuary of peace, and a testimony of His goodness, and may you carry forward the assurance that what is shocking is not disaster but divine mercy, not chaos but comfort, and not despair but the overflowing love of Christ that fills every corner of your life forever. Archangel Michael says, "I am calling you once more with a message carried straight from the heart of heaven, because this night is holy, and its weight cannot be compared with ordinary hours, for the Lord has chosen to draw near to you in ways that will mark your life forever, and His Spirit is already resting over your home like a soft and radiant covering that will not lift but will remain, filling you with peace and protecting you from fear." The urgency you feel in these words is not born of dread but of love, because God never speaks to harm His children, but to awaken them, to remind them that His presence is closer than they realize, and to prepare their hearts for the wonder of what He is about to release, for tonight carries the fragrance of breakthrough, the sound of chains falling, and the sweetness of mercy arriving in places that once felt barren and untouched. When heaven speaks of something shocking, it is not to bring terror into your house, but to open your eyes to how suddenly and powerfully God can move, for He does not always work in the ways you expect, but He always works for your good, and tonight you will see with your spirit that what once felt like silence was in truth His preparation, and what once felt delayed was only being perfected for the right moment, which is now. Every tear you shed in secret has been collected by the Lord, every sigh you breathed when no one was near has been heard, and every weary thought you carried in the long hours of waiting has been known to Him, for He has walked with you through every step, though unseen, and tonight He is reminding you that He has never been absent, but has been weaving His mercy into your story, shaping every hardship into a testimony of His endless faithfulness. The angels assigned to your dwelling are not merely protecting the walls of your house, but they are ministering to your spirit, carrying peace into the very atmosphere of your soul, surrounding you with strength that cannot be shaken, and declaring over you that your life belongs to the Lord, that your home is set apart for His glory, and that no weapon formed against you will prosper, because His light is stronger than any shadow and His promises are greater than any fear. Christ is standing in the center of your life with arms wide open, carrying scars that speak of victory, eyes filled with compassion that sees every hidden pain, and a heart overflowing with a love that cannot and will not let you go, for He has chosen you, redeemed you, and sealed you with His Spirit, and this very night His voice whispers with clarity that you are not forgotten, you are not forsaken, and you are not alone, because His presence is eternal and unbreakable. Do not let fear confuse your heart, for fear is only a shadow, and shadows hold no true power when the light of God fills the room, and tonight that light is breaking forth, scattering the lies that told you that you were abandoned, silencing the doubts that told you that your prayers were wasted, and replacing them with the truth that the Lord has always been near, always listening, and always ready to move when the time was perfect, and now that time has come. The shocking reality of this night is not disaster, but deliverance, not loss, but love, not ruin, but renewal, for your house is already filled with the presence of God, your heart is already being lifted into peace, and your spirit is already tasting the sweetness of heaven's embrace, and as you surrender fully, you will see that everything you feared is powerless compared to the strength of God's mercy that has covered you completely. Amen.